joined us online. Just note, we are still waiting on some to arrive with their transport, so we'll give it another 10 minutes or so for them to arrive and for us to begin. Thank you for your patience. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. My name is Kayla Murray. I'm the Standing Committee Chair for Finance, Economic Opportunities and Tourism, and it's a pleasure to see all of your beautiful faces here on a Friday evening. I know that there are other things that you could be doing, so we are very, very grateful that you've decided to join us instead. So with that, I would just like to afford the members of my committee an opportunity to introduce themselves, and I'll firstly start with the member in the House and then go online.
Afternoon, Chairperson and members of the committee online, and also good evening to members of the public that have attended. My name is Lulama Mvimbi. I'm the alternate member of the committee. I'm standing in for Honorable Ngondlo.
Thank you very much, member. Members online, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, Chair. My name is Hendrikus van der Westhuizen, a member of this committee.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, members. Good afternoon, everybody in the House. My name is Mbulelo Isaac Sileku, a member of the committee. Good afternoon.
Thank you very much. I would just like to record for the record that we have received one apology from member Brinkes, who's unable to join this evening. So with that, of course, we're here today to talk about the Small Enterprises Bill. We are joined by the department who will provide a briefing. After the briefing, there'll be an opportunity for any questions of clarity. So if you just want to understand something that was explained, you didn't quite understand, or if you think that maybe there's just a bit more that needs to be explained on it, you can ask your question. After that, we'll have our submissions. So let's not confuse the submissions and the questions. People tend to do that. But yeah, we'll just separate the two out. Then from there, we'll be able to conclude the meeting short and sweet. So with that, I would now like to hand over to the department.
I'm Elise Kukumur. I'm from the Department of Small Business Development, and I will take you through the presentation that we've prepared for the public hearings. Just want to get the presentation mode. What is important and what I've picked up from the other public hearings was that they want us to tell you exactly where we are in the bill. So currently the presentation doesn't tell you exactly where we are in the bill, but as I go through the presentation, I will tell you what area of the bill we are in at the moment. So if we look in terms of the objectives of the bill, if you look at in the preamble, that's the very first part on the bill. If you have got a copy of the bill, where there is normally in bold and in italic, that is the objective of the bill, and there it tells you exactly what the bill wants to achieve. So if you go through through that, you will see there are 5 things that we want to achieve with this amendment bill. The first thing that we want to do is we want to bring together the 3 agencies that is currently providing support to small enterprises and cooperatives, and that is the Small Enterprise Development Agency, the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, and the Cooperative Bank Development Agency. That's only the part of the cooperative of the banking agency that's providing development support to small scale CFIs or cooperative banks. And how we've come to this, I think it's important that you also realize that we started this process as far back as 2016, when we went out to all the provinces and we said to the provinces, we sit with a bill that haven't been reviewed for quite some time. We want to review that. We realize from the complaints that we receive on a daily basis that there must be unhappiness and there must be reasons for us to amend the bill. So what in the bill do you want us to change? So, and that we went out to all 9 provinces. Then we went and we had another set of consultations with representative bodies. And the biggest complaints that came in was, we're sick and tired of having to go to CEDA, and then we told, no, you must go to CIFA first, and then you've been sent from bakboord to stuurboord, but without getting support. And even if you then went to CEDA, they were saying that CEDA would develop a business plan, and if they go to CIFA would say, no, this business plan is not good enough. You must have another business plan. So, and we've tried through the department to align those things, but it just never worked. So the best way then to do that was, and this came from the community, this came from the people, that what we need to do is to bring them together under one agency so that they provide integrated support to SMMEs. As we went out also, after that consultations, I just want to take you through that. We also went further. Another thing that they've told us that needs to be amended is that as small enterprises, it's difficult for them if they're not getting paid on time. People don't pay them. They don't pay them interest on late payments. It's very difficult if they end up in disputes with other business partners. It's difficult because often they get all their work from one large company. So they don't want to upset the relationship also with this one large company that they're dealing with, because that's the only company that's giving them work. So you can't upset that person by taking this person to court and then expect the persons to still continue providing you with support. And so that then brought us to the second area that we felt that we then have to provide intervention. And we then came up with the ombudsperson for small enterprises. And we went through a whole process to make sure that we come up with the right instrument to assist in that. Another thing that we've realized is that the one thing that we don't have in South Africa, but that do exist in other countries, is that ministers in other countries can declare business-to-business practices as they relate to small enterprises to be unfair, prohibited business practices. And I will go through that process as well, because the first thing when people hear that, they say, it's okay, yes, we need that. And the other side, but is this not going to isolate us, that nobody wants to do business with us because now the business practices can be declared unlawful? So we had to balance that as well, and I will take you through that as well. Then the fourth thing that we're going to amend is the definition for small enterprises. The definition is very complex, and it's difficult for the stakeholders then to work with the definitions and their different thresholds. So they wanted us to simplify it. If you look in terms of the definitions for the BEE codes, they're much simpler than ours, and it's easier to work with. So we need to align with that, because at the end of the day, we collect statistics based on these definitions, but the data at the moment is spread because we don't have a strong, good definition. So it also impacts on the availability of credible information on small enterprises. And then the last thing that we're going to amend is a section 20, subsection 2, where there is we need to clarify the interventions there and what the minister is entitled to be able to do. So I'm first going to talk to you through the merger of the three entities. That is the Small Enterprise Development Agency, the Small Enterprise Finance Agency, and the Cooperative Development Agency. They will be put together into a single entity that will then be called the Small Enterprise Development Finance Agency. The establishment of SETFA, that is the abbreviation for that, gives effect to a cabinet decision to enable and enable and provide for integrated government support, both financial and non-financial, to small enterprises, including cooperatives. In addition, the amalgamation of the three entities also contributes to cabinet-endorsed rationalization of the number of state-owned enterprises. We know that there are so many state-owned enterprises, and government has said it must be reduced to also to make sure that it's aligned and it is streamlined. We must reduce the number of CEOs, and we must improve service delivery. So that we liked, and we supported that. And the purpose of SETFA will be to ensure that small enterprises and the cooperative ecosystem is able to offer the most efficient business advice, business development investment support, business facilitation, and incubation support. So we want to make sure that we align all these services and provide an integrated and comprehensive service to small enterprises. The vision of SETFA is to be a leading business development entity that will drive economic transformation and inclusive growth in the economy through ensuring the provision of customized financial and non-financial support and greater access to finance for SMEs. We also that we currently have is too general. We need to customize it to the needs of SMEs. And it would just be easier if we have the development arm working closer with the financial arm to make sure that we provide the correct services to SMEs. It will help us also in that way. The bill provides for SETFA to be established as a state-owned company in terms of the Companies Act, and the state to be the sole shareholder with the minister as the sole representative of that shareholder. SETFA operations are subject to the FMA and the Companies Act. I also just want to say, if you want to look at these provisions, it's under Chapter 3. So we're replacing the current Small Enterprise Development Agency with SETFA. So if you want to look in terms of the narrative, the copies that you've been provided, that's under Chapter 3 that these amendments are. The bill set the criteria and the composition of the board and requires the board to constitute specific board committees, including an audit and risk committee and a board nominations committee to assist in the public and transparent board appointment processes. This is also important. What we've realized is that with the current boards, there's unhappiness in terms of the transparency in terms of how those boards are put together. And we've changed that also through this to make sure that it's representative of the provinces and that it is, and we set the skill sets that the board members must comply with, but then also there is this committee that must be established to make sure that it's fair and it's transparent in terms of how the board members will then be appointed. The Office of the Ombuds Service is the next area that I'm going to talk you through, and that is Chapter 3A. This is just the next chapter deals with that. And the mischief that the bill aims to remedy is the lack of effective and affordable access to justice mechanism for small enterprises. Business-to-business disputes and late payment and non-payment of legitimate invoices are a significant reality in the lives of small enterprises across the world. And it's not different in South Africa. Actually, I think it's worse in South Africa because currently our SMEs by default does not have access to this justice system. And if you look in terms of Section 34 of the Constitution, it guarantees that everyone has the right to have any dispute that can be resolved by the application of law decided in a fair public hearing before a court where appropriate, another independent impartial tribunal or a forum. The litigation route to resolve disputes places SMEs at a significant disadvantage relative to their larger business counterparts for at least 3 reasons. The financial cost of unresolved disputes is heavily borne by small enterprises. So just the amount of money that's involved is so big. But even although it's so big, often you find that the small enterprise will not go through that process because even if the amount going through a court process is going to even make it more costly for you because you will have to be away from your small enterprise and it's going to take time and more cost. It's going to add more cost and you have no guarantee that you will be able to actually resolve this matter. And the process is cumbersome and time consuming and also very important. You might destroy this relationship with your business partner, which is not what you want to do. You want to go through an alternative dispute resolution process that will allow you to maintain that relationship with your business partner. The bill provides for the office as a juristic person and set the criteria for the appointment of the ombud. We will be accountable to the minister and parliament. The provisions for the functions of the office is to perform by the ombud, assisted by any deputy ombud operating in regional offices. And why we say regional offices, as where the needs are, there the will be appointed. We're not going to appoint them just to make sure that we do have one in Cape Town. If the problem is not in Cape Town, but the problem is in Beaufort West, then that is where the ombudsperson must be. So, and there will be also as where the needs are and as the needs come and go. So there might not be a permanent office, but where the need is there we will have an office. The office will be subject to the PFMA, and in the beginning stages, also what we want to avoid is in the past where sometimes you put these entities in place and then later on this entity become a rule upon themselves, and then you have to struggle to get them transformed. So we're going to allow for the Ombud service to grow organically. So we're going to start off by putting in place an administrative office within the department. And based on the cases and based on how we're going to deal with that, we will grow that and see then, okay, we need a separate entity, or we need to, and then we will go to but we allow for our first aim at this point is to make sure that SMEs do get access to the service as soon as possible, as affordable as possible, and as efficiently and effectively as possible. The bill provides for the office to consider and dispute of complaints in a procedurally fair, informal, economically and expeditious manner, and by reference to what is equitable in all circumstances, with due regard to the contractual arrangements or other legal relationships between the complainant and any other party to the complaint. The Ombud service will provide a full suite of services, from complaints handling to investigation, the alternative dispute resolution, adjudication, contracting, practice modeling, to assist small enterprises in the drafting and signing of fair and sound contractual agreements. The determinations by the Ombud are mandatory and binding, and providing alternative dispute resolution that is aimed at avoiding litigation, and which is expensive and time consuming, and that also maintain the relationship that you want to maintain. When I talk here about alternative dispute resolution, there's a number of bodies at the moment that is providing alternative dispute resolution solutions to small to enterprises. But there's none of that bodies is providing alternative dispute resolutions to small enterprises. And we have consulted, after we've consulted with the representative bodies, we went to all the alternative dispute resolution bodies, the Competition Commission and other bodies, to make sure that we come up with something and that there's no duplication. We often get the thing that it's competing, or it's competing with what the Competition Commission is doing. This is not competing with the Competition Commission. There is some provision in the Competition Commission legislation, but we've sat down with them and they said to us that no, their service that they offer is not as comprehensive as what we are going to offer. And we will make sure that those areas where they do cater for, the office will, the moment they see something that falls in that jurisdiction, it will be referred. So we will make sure that we don't duplicate. If a SME sent to us something that should be dealt with by the Consumer Affairs, we will refer it to the Consumer Affairs. We will not just give it back to the small enterprise. We will assist you then in making sure that it ends up at the place where it can be resolved. And no duplications. We've made sure in our consultations and the way that we've set it up, and there's even a provision in the bill that says that enable us to make sure that we can negotiate and refer it to the relevant bodies to make sure that we don't duplicate. I've spoken about the determinations of the Ombud, that they are mandatory and binding. Another thing that came up, especially through the public consultations, was that you will see that it doesn't allow for an appeal process. And immediately people were saying, but there should be an appeal process. we deliberately did not include an appeal process because the appeal process is what is making litigation expensive, because small enterprises don't have the time or the money to go through appeal processes. Big businesses can easily do that. And this is also international practice, that when it comes to this, there's no appeal processes, but we have built in safety nets to make sure that the decisions that are taken are legitimate decisions and are not unfair decisions, because you will see that determinations by the Ombud must be made in writing, must include the reasons for the determination, and copies of the determination and complaint must be sent to the clerk or the registrar of the court that would have had jurisdiction in the matter had it been heard by a court. So if the Ombud takes an unfair decision, the court process will in any case pick it up. So that is the one safety net. The other safety net is the Constitution, because the provision is made for judicial review. And what does judicial review? Judicial review does not review the decision that was taken, because we make sure that the decision was taken on evidence, on the right, and that the reasons is provided for the decision. But it allows for specifically on the grounds of illegitimity, illegality. So it makes sure that it's a legal decision that was taken, that there's no illegality involved. My tongue is not getting around the word. And procedural unfairness, that a fair process was followed and that there's no irrationality in the decision. So it covers those three aspects as well. So there should not be any fear that unfair decisions will be taken. It can't be taken. And there is processes and safety nets built in to make sure that that does not happen. Unfair trading practices. Unfair trading practices falls also under this section 30, chapter 3A, and it was that number 17. It's the 17s that goes with the alphabet. That is the unfair trading practices. The bill enables the minister, on recommendation of the Ombud, to declare certain trading practices in relation to small enterprises to be prohibited unfair trading practices. Initially, when we published the bill, everybody was saying, oh, no, we don't know who's going to be the next minister. And the next minister might have funny ideas about what is unfair and what is not fair and what is fair. It can be a major risk, and it can distort relationship. As much as we're fighting and making sure that small enterprises have a fairness and can grow, we also have to make sure that we don't create a distance between large businesses and small, so that we don't make large businesses not to do business with small businesses. So we have to balance that, because if we discourage that, large businesses will walk away, not work. And we as government want large businesses to work with small. So we have to give them that comfort that there's going to be fairness. We will not allow undue. So, and when we went through the portfolio committee public hearing process, they've added that condition on recommendation of the Ombud. They've added that recommendation there. So the minister can't just. The minister can only do that on the recommendation of the Ombud. And the Ombud can only make such a recommendation on evidence. And that evidence can only be through the cases that came in front of them, where they could see, but listen, this is happening, this is unfair, and this should not be allowed, or through research. So it must be on evidence that the Ombud is advising the minister to declare that practice to be unfair. Furthermore, the parameters are set in the legislation in terms of which the minister can do that. The minister can't just do that. The bill stipulates what are the rights of small enterprises. So it must impede on that right of small enterprises. And the rights that's set there for small enterprises are simple rights. Small business have the right to be paid on time. They have the right to pay interest if they're not paid on time. They have the right to fair contracting. They have the right, all the information that's relevant to this contract must be provided for them, to them. And those are the kind of the rights that small enterprises have. So it sets the parameters. It also sets that the principles that the minister must apply in taking these decisions. So it sets the parameters. The minister can't act outside those parameters, and it must be on advice of the Ombud. And then it also says there's a whole process that it must go through before it can be declared an unfair trading practice. The first thing is it says before issuing a notice, because the minister must publish a notice contemplating that she considers to declare a certain business practice to be unfair trading practices. But before she even does that, she must consult with the minister responsible for trade, industry, and competition. This is another safety net that we've built in to make sure that there's no duplications, that what is currently in the Competition Act is not what we're dealing with here. And my one colleague is always saying that, remember, competition law is about competing with big companies. What we're talking about here is not competition. We're talking about business-to-business practices, contracts. So it is just from that perspective, there's already a different focus area. So, but we've made sure that there's no duplications because the minister must first consult. Then, when they have come to an agreement that this is not the area that is covered under competition law, then the minister can publish that intention to declare unfair trading practice. And while she's awaiting, and that it must contain the reasons why she wants to declare this. She can't just say, I want to. She must provide the reasons, and that evidence of that must be made available to the public. Then also on that, following the publication of this intent, she must also consult with the relevant sector minister. So if it's something in the agricultural sector, she must consult with the minister responsible for agriculture, because there might be a very good reason why a practice happens the way that it happens in a specific sector, or if it's in tourism, or it's in the arts and crafts area. So that is also provided for. And then, of course, there's the normal process with when you go regulations where there must be consultation and the public must comment on it, and then only does it go through the process. So once again, this provision is created to safeguard the rights of small enterprises, but we've built in the necessary safety nets to make sure that it's not abused and that it does allow for the economy to grow. The definition of small enterprises. Currently, we have 4 size categories of small enterprises. And the definition for small enterprises is the very first chapter that is under definitions that we're dealing with that. The definition for small enterprises, 4 size categories. We've got micro, that is your self-help enterprises, very small. Then we have very small, which is between small and micro. And then we have medium enterprises. We have been told by stakeholders that it's very difficult for them to interpret the different size categories. And we're also telling our government counterparts, listen, stop treating enterprises, small SMEs, like they're generic. They are not generic. They've got different needs. A micro enterprise's needs differs from that of a small one, and the small one's needs differs from a medium one. They've got different needs. You need to cater for the needs of a specific size category of small enterprise. But it's difficult for them if you have this many. In most countries, you only find small, medium, large, or you only find small and large. You don't find this many size categories. But we want to accommodate, because we want to realize that we have many self-help micro enterprises that are different from a small enterprise. And that is why we want to maintain that. But we want to make it simpler, because we want to provide other government departments also to provide differential treatment to the different size categories. And they've asked us that please reduce to 3, like you have in the BE codes, just reduce to 3. Do away with very small, because very small is in between in any case. So we're going to incorporate very small in the size category small, and we will then still have the micro, and stay small and medium. What we're also going to do is, how do you determine the different size categories? There's thresholds that we use. And the criteria that sets these different thresholds is unemployment, turnover, and asset value. Turnover, we get that information. Unemployment, you are required to submit your information to the Department of Labor. We have that information. On asset value, we have no evidence-based information on asset value. Even the South African Revenue Service have done away with asset value because there's no way for them to verify asset value. It's also not used internationally. Internationally, most countries only use one. They use either employment or they use turnover. Most countries use turnover, but in South Africa, we want to use employment as well, because job creation is also something that we want to be able to drive. So we will keep employment, jobs, the number of employees and turnover, but we want to do away with the size, with the criteria on asset value, because we don't have any evidence-based data on, it doesn't exist, it's not there. So it's almost like illegal. It's almost like a crime to put something there, but you don't have evidence to support that, because we don't have evidence. Be honest and clear about that. So we're doing away with that size category. So the 4 size categories is reduced to 3, and the criteria is from 3 to 2. So they will be only the 2 criteria, employment and turnover. The last amendment that we're making is on Section 2 of the Act. At the moment, that provision in the Act is very broad. It gives the minister the right to actually amend the definition without having to go through Parliament. That is how broad that definition is. It's just that we've never utilized that. And it was pointed out to us by Oxley, and they were saying to us that provision is too broad. It is unconstitutional, because an important thing like setting the definition for a small enterprise can only be done through Parliament. It's not a power that resides with the minister. So we're amending that provision to bring it in line with the Constitution and to ensure clarity in terms of what the powers of the minister is, and when she amends and update the criteria determining the different categories of small enterprises. Those are the 5 amendment areas that we have. So the portfolio committee then the bill was introduced to the portfolio committee, and they've done the public hearings from 26 October to 23rd of November. And then they took a decision on the 6th of December, and they've approved the bill, and they've submitted it to the National Assembly for concurrence. And that is where we are at the moment. We've introduced it to the select committee. They've consulted on that, and we're currently busy with the public hearings. We've been we've been in all the different provinces for the last 3 weeks. My family haven't seen me because I was either in Free State or in KwaZulu-Natal, but I somewhere busy with portfolio committee hearings, with public hearings. So I think this is the second last public hearing. There's only one public hearing for KZN that's still outstanding. And then we hope that they will take the bill, and we really hope that we've been waiting so long with this bill so that we can pass this bill in the current administration and start off the new administration with all the new amendments that is made based on your needs and what you've asked us to do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I can see everyone was paying a lot of attention, which is always good news when you're sitting in my seat and shows that the meeting is worthwhile and everybody is taking part. So with that, you do now have an opportunity to ask any questions of clarity. You can do so using the raise hand function if you're online, or raising your hand in the house if you have any questions. Any questions? I see one question here. Any others? All right. So if you can also just say your name for the record, if you're representing an organization or if you come from a certain area that you'd like to represent, please say so.
Thank you, Chair. I am Ruzani Kennedy Ramatea, a civil servant representing the people of South Africa. Hopefully, they acknowledge me as a representative, and people of Stellenbosch, as I am in the Boland district. Thank you for a very great presentation. And my questions are not that many, but I hope that they're precise so that you can also try to give me a precise answer or so, although it might be hard. Looking at also small, the second part of the presentation, I believe, which speaks about Small Enterprise Development Finance Agency. It's not really in the definition itself. Some few questions there. Will it be also helping small scale businesses or so in local communities to foster, will it be helping to foster partnerships? That is one of the main things that I'm asking here, because I've seen that the rise of actually some businesses are in the partnerships. How does it help in terms of localizing businesses into co-ops or into forums that might help them to propel those small businesses further? And also reduced processing time, because a lot of people have been going to the national offices, SEDA offices, and as you said in your presentation, they're being told to go there, and when you go there, that you're being told this, that no, it's not that good or so. Will this reduce the processing time of an application so that people can get funded faster and not lose many other contracts that they might be looking to get or so? And another thing, will there be a national platform to see with small businesses within regions and local municipalities so that the small businesses themselves can try to do business with one another to try to localize the trade and do something locally, which I believe that is very essential. And looking at the office of the Ombud service, the access in terms of localization, do you have a digital platform for people to lay complaints, or do we have to always travel to a certain area or so? Because it might cost also the government a lot of money, and that's something that is of I believe that is of great thought to us, because we don't want to cost the state money as small businesses, but also on our end also, some of us can barely survive and try to travel to and fro. So how can we look at that? Maybe looking at an online platform and how people can do that. And also a litigation partner. I love the office itself because of what it provides and the cost that it reduces or so. But can the process be done a bit more proficiently? If I might even just add a little bit of thing. I'm from a company called We Earth. What we do, we look at communities on another dimension. We digitalize communities so that we can understand their need. The communities can actually tell us what the problems are. We create programs or projects to help solve their local problems. And when they tell us their need or so, okay, we see how we can get the whole community come and work together to solve that need, because there will be skills transfer and many other things that are happening there. And with that, we are working also with small chapters within universities to be our litigation partner, especially political and law students or so, to look at these cases that communities are rising there and there and there. What system do you have in place for it to be more, let me just say, easy for you to understand the level at which this case is at? Because we cannot say that the office itself can take each and every single problem, because there's a lot of problems that small businesses can give to the government itself. So what other entities are you attached to that can be partners for you to reduce the workload and process issues much more faster? And going into the powers and functions of the officer, so I'd like to ask, what are the penalties imposed and the degree or severity of law abuses, both from the big scale, big partner, small partner, from both sides or so? Is there any blacklisting? What is happening? Because we have seen to and fro, and avoiding an issue where there is corruption involved or so, because the problem is that most of the time we see that they just get a big slap on the wrist and they just pay a 200,000 rand fine, while the issue is much more problematic than that, especially it arises a lot of other questions to people who are getting tenders, because this actually relates to that, because small businesses, most of them get their business from the government through municipalities. So how does that play a role? Because we keep on seeing projects going to certain companies or so, and it's not to ask a question whether is it favorism or whatever. No, but when things are not done the right way, what penalties are they going to be imposed, so that maybe the rightful person might see that there is something to be done and I can contribute, and also for people to know not to mess with the South African government, because they will be an arm to pay with. And yes, two last questions. You'll forgive me. Yes, and looking at unfair trading practices or so. Now, I've already asked the one about how are we going to reduce the abuse by, I think, let me just ask this in another manner as well. Local businesses in townships. A friend of mine came to me and said, we cannot work with businesses in townships. And I said, there is a bit of a problem with businesses in townships. They pay tax to the government and also to the local government, if you know what I mean. That tax masters within the communities or so. And exactly. Some people call gangsters politicians, but that's a topic for another day. But just to say, so if a community is not formalized, or business structures within a communities are not formalized, they're susceptible to such kind of abuse. What measures has the department itself put in place to say, okay, here's a drive to formalize the small businesses, so that we make sure that you are included within our grasp and we can protect you, especially from townships and rural areas or so? And yes, the issue will always be arising of nepotism within municipalities or so. I'm from another area where you kind of see a road being built. And I bring this, I know it might be a procurement issue, but it's still a small business issue, because as a small business, I have the right to tender and to say, okay, I'm looking for a tender from the municipality. That is business from the state that we're getting. And some of the times where we are able to cater, we see that there are certain things that are not done in certain areas. And when we see the roads, they're leading to a certain kind of wine farm. They're leading to a certain kind of area. And this has been the issue of contention forever in the Middle East, the issue of roads. The Roman Empire actually conquered the Middle East because it was a center point for trade. And that's one thing that people do not understand. The moment that roads are being built away from our communities, there is a lot of trade that is being taken away. So how do we resolve that issue? And because we need the roads, because roads are access. The more companies can see that they can access another point through our communities, they might even think about creating employment around our community. Therefore, building the roads and this kind of things from municipalities to centralize roads within certain places or so, it's an immediate need, because it will build the small businesses over there, because these big companies will need local partners. And coming to the last one or so, looking also, there's a lot of I won't say there's a lot of money that is being that is sent back from municipalities or so. I'll give just a small case that we have a town here which is highly profitable to the government because people pay taxes there, and we have other places where they're informal. And the issue with informal areas is that we have an estimate about the tax that is being paid, and that's the problem. Wherever tax is not really seen that much, less resources will be sent there, and that becomes a bit of a problem. And now, but there are funds from municipality, from national, to say that these are funds to develop that community, but yet we see no development where money is being sent back to Treasury, and that becomes more and more of a problem. How is the office itself going to solve that issue to make sure that no projects that are said to happen in certain areas can happen so that small businesses can profit from that? Thank you, Chair, for that, and I'll leave it there.
Thank you. Yes, with that, can the department please solve the country's problems? Given the number of questions, if the participant might, let's hand over, allow the official to answer the questions, and then we'll come back for the next round. Sorry, Ms. Kukumur, your mic is.
What are we going to do and how are we going to work together so that we provide better and integrated services? We should look how are we going to improve
Hello?
our systems so that a small enterprise should be able.
No, the mic was off. The person speaking didn't put their
Let's just,
microphone on.
if
That's
IT
fine,
could kindly mute themselves. IT, if you could kindly mute yourself, Suraj. Thank you. Please continue.
So if we can organize ourselves better so that we can provide integrated services, because it should be possible for National Treasury to organize through province, so that a person can go to the municipality and have access there to information. The other thing is about processing time. And one of the things that we're doing, and we are currently working and we're creating a national database on small enterprises. That if you want to apply for support, you have to be in our database. And that is to do away with the CIPC one, where now you're registered and the taxman have your number. We want you on our system. If you're not registered, We want to work with you and we want to develop you to a point where you want to become registered, and you want, because you can see the value in that for you to grow your business. So, but we need the information for us to do that. We need the information also to be able to see what support have you received and what other complementary support is required, so that we can work better from national with the provinces. So if national provides certain interventions, why are we competing with provinces providing similar interventions? They should be providing complementary interventions. And that is how we need to organize ourselves, so that we provide complementary support and provide holistic support in the process, rather than what we're currently doing. And Limpopo was telling us, they said, Elise, you, national, come and you parachute here in our province, and you're not even telling us which SMEs you're helping. Stop doing that. Work with us. Tell us who you're helping, so that we can provide complementary support. So the provinces all welcome this. They want to work with us so that we can provide better integrated, effective support that is holistic to a small enterprise, so that we don't just give you one shoe and then expect you to walk with one shoe, that we give you complementary support that will really put you on the road to success, that we work at. So that is talking about the processing time also, because we need to work to move online. When we online, we want our systems to be of such a nature that on your cell phone you can follow the progress on your applications and what is happening to that, so that we can monitor that as well, because that will also allow us to monitor to see where are the hiccups and why are there certain hiccups, and why is some processes, some applications process faster than other. Because we also often get the complaints that I apply, but my application goes somewhere in a box X that goes into a dark corner, whilst other people's applications are just going like that. There needs to be fairness. And unfortunately, human beings are human beings. But if we work with systems, there's greater fairness in that. So we are digitizing. And one of the things that we're also saying to NIST is digitize, and where our SMEs don't have access to that to that technology, we must make sure that they get that access through the local government, through the entry points that is provided. Localization is a big drive that we're working on at the moment. We have a whole unit working on localization and see how we can make localization work. We have communities of practices on enterprise supplier development, where we linking small enterprises with large enterprises. But we bring on board a community of practice, and we need to localize those communities of practices to the different districts, so that there's a community of practice, and you get the private sector, you get academia, you get service providers, and you get government to all be part of that, because there's interactive learning that is taking place also on that communities of that community of practice, that you can learn, because information is power, and the information is shared on an open platform. The other thing is also, how do we share our learning experiences? This in government, what we are doing now, and what Gauteng was saying, what they have that works for them, because we all have different programs that we implement, and we come across problems in the implementation of our programs, but they have what they call war rooms. So 1 month, all the program implementers comes into a room, and they say, we have this problem, and then they start discussing that problem, and from the learnings from others, they solve those problems. So we are now encouraging government to also start creating our little war rooms, and we can see how we can maybe replicate that to communities within your communities. How do we create that war rooms, so that if there's somebody that had a problem to have access to water, what did you do to have it resolved? Because we want to build our communities, and we will never build it if we work in silos. So we must move away from this mentality where I'm also Afrikaans, and I'm coming from an Afrikaans community, and they always were joking at us, and they would say, "Yo, Afrikaans people, you will always draw each other back because you are like crabs that you put in a bucket. If the one tries to get out, the other one will pull it back." We must, in our communities, stop that attitude and allow people to grow and grow with people. We must share learning experience. If I had a problem to get water or get water to my premises, I must share it. Listen, how you should do it is this. That's the only way how we're going to grow as communities. If we keep on pulling each other down, government can only do so much. From our own parts, we must also see how we can work better together and how we can grow and how we can share learning. It's not just about monitoring and evaluation, learning. I always stress the L and MEL is more important than the M and E. So learning. How do we learn? How do we grow together? We can only grow together if we learn together. How do we share? But in government, that is what we, through the NIST process, what we're driving is, how do we as government work better together? How do we learn from our mistakes? How do we get openness and transparency in our systems? That's through digitization and making sure that we provide feedback, because you cannot just wait. You've submitted the application, and the banking sector already have those systems in place. And then a national platform for localization and trade. Yes, that's what we want. Through this communities of practices, getting people together, sharing information. That is something that we're working on. And also, on the other question was on the Ombuds service, and should there be a digital platform for complaints? Definitely, that is how we want to roll. We want to roll on digitization. We want that to be the paper gets lost all the time. My husband is in the Air Force. I don't know if any of you have family members in the Air Force or in the Army. You know, they're not even they don't use WhatsApps because they're still using fax. And I was teasing him. I always tell him, I said to me, yes, what do you expect in the Air Force? You can fly, but you're still using fax. We don't fax anymore, but the Air Force still fax. So you need to keep up with the times, and you need to grow with the times. I think the only fax machines left in this country are in Air Force officers. Sorry, people from the Air Force, but it can't. You can't operate like that. You can't. You need to digitize, and we need to. And it's difficult. I'm also old. I'm also past 60. It's not always, but we have to keep up with the young ones and the kids. That's the only way that we're going to stay ahead of them. We need to be smart. Litigation and litigation partners and how you solve problems. Well, at this stage, there's lots of problem solving, and there's a lot of course, your cases are going to be heard by the Ombud, and there's going to be a decision that's going to be taken on that. But I think we must also at the point share some of this information so that we can, and are they going to go into partnership? I think that was your question was about. You talk a lot about partnership. If you look in terms of NIST and what we're promoting through NIST is, we're saying as government, we can't service every person and small business in South Africa. We need to take hands in partnerships with big business in South Africa so that we can collectively grow. And there's a lot of things that we're doing in that to make sure that we grow and that we allow for that growth. And partnerships is key in that. So, and we're encouraging partnerships as well. That is what our Enterprise Supplier Development Program is about, is that how do we partner and how do we allow and enable small enterprises to partner. So definitely that is on the cards. That is where we're going. Unfair business trading practices and local and townships. The issue of gangsterism is coming up now in all provinces. I know KZN, I think, is the head of Western Cape on that one. It's even worse in KZN, but Mpumalanga is starting to cry. Northwest is starting to cry. It's coming up everywhere. The so-called security services. It's crime. And how do we deal with crime? We as communities need to stand together And the SAP need to do their part in making sure that we deal with this. But this is crime, and we need to deal with crime. We can't subsidize crime. So we need to find a way, and it will have to be a collective solution, because government alone can't do it. If communities are hiding the criminals, then we can't help them. So as you need to take responsibility for your communities, and you need to work with us. We can't do everything. We can help you if you work with us. And unfortunately, because and they use fancy words like you've used, and not used it, gangsterism, because they don't want to be, and we need to be open and blatant about these things. Call a spade, and tell us where these things are so that we can deal with them. But as long as you keep quiet about them and allow them to stay amongst you, then they're going to stay amongst you. And there's very little that we do. So as communities, take responsibility, and then we can work collectively. Nepotism is a problem. It's criminal. It's just as criminal. And those people that is by making themselves guilty to that needs to be exposed. As long as you're going to stay quiet about it, it's not going to expose them. Expose. If the government officials that are giving work for their family members, expose them. They don't deserve to be public servants. If they want to run family businesses, they must start their own family businesses. They can't run a family business from a government office. And the profitability and townships, one of the key things that we're going to start working on now, we've been given a task, and my unit is going to drive that. Our department has now developed a concept document on township for small business development. But the problem is DTIC is also doing a lot of work in townships. So is COCTA doing a lot of work in townships, but we need to work collectively. So earlier today, I had a meeting with COCTA, and I said to them, we need to work together on these things. We can't work in silos. We need to work together, and we need to create make townships to be a safe place to do business in. So this is one of the focus areas that we're going to work on, is how are we going to uplift townships? What needs to be done to make sure that townships are safe places to do business in, and how do we get businesses running and being profitable, and how do we link supplier development programs so that they anchored in townships? So this is something that we're going to work on for the next year. We already have programs. We're not waiting for a policy to be developed before we start working. We already have programs, and we're running them parallel. But we need to get better focus and better collaboration, and we need to have a single policy on small business development in townships. We can't have this thing that this department is doing a little bit and that department. We need to work together so that we can get the maximum benefit from the little resources that we as government have. So that is definitely a focus area that we're working on at the moment. I think I've covered them all.
I think so too. Thank you very much. Any further questions? If you could raise your hands.
Good afternoon, Chair.
Apologies. I would just like to recognize the lady in front of you. We're just raising hands. So the lady in front of you, if you could just introduce yourself first, the organization, and then the gentleman behind you. Okay.
Okay, my name is Joanne. I'm from Housing Assembly. I've got a concern about this bill because it's mentioned of very small enterprises, very small businesses. Because I want to know, is it only you talking about the businesses that is registered? Or is this bill including for the smallest business in our communities? I'm very localized, and I need to understand this bill because I need to go to my community and talk about this bill, because in our communities there's small businesses that is not even registered, that's living from that business, from the mouth to the business. And this bill is a real concern for me as an activist and as living in a very outskirted area. Because here it said, I need to understand what does it mean when it say the bill provides for the office as a juristic person and sets the criteria for the appointment of the Ombud, who will be accountable to the Minister and Parliament. I need to know that part. Then I'm going to my next question, which is the criteria by definition of small enterprises. What does it mean when it say the criteria asset value to be removed? I need to know.
Thank you very much. The gentleman behind you.
Good afternoon, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Chief Block from the Work Standard Royal House. I am also a member of Mkhonto Sizwe, but I'm only here on my own capacity now, business capacity. I want to latch on what the gentleman said from the Civic Association. He spoke about the tax money that has been taxed at the townships. And this shouldn't be just swept under the mat. It's a serious concern. Because when you go to the, I would say the well of townships, as you enter their places, there is cameras all over the place. And they can see every person getting in and out. There's no way they're not going to miss crime happening. But when you go to black townships and colored townships and all these townships, there's no cameras to be found. It's only here and there. A personal experience in my street, there's a tavern, it's called Emelatlin. I've called the government several times, 10-111. It will ring until Pitcom, but nothing will happen. And they send me from Pontius Pilatus, but nobody will come out. It is a serious concern for us as South Africans when the civil officials are not working for us. And just to add to that panel you were talking about, the Ombudsman panel, I don't think the government can do everything for the community. I think the community need to be present when decisions are taken with the government. Let me explain myself. The pastors, they are doing the biggest job, if you can put it that way, to try to transform people from criminal to a better human being. That's an example. But the government is so against the churches that they won't look after the churches. They see every church as there's criminality been happening. So that to me is a problem, because how can be the person who's transforming another human being to be a better person to look under the mat? It's totally unacceptable. So what I'm saying to that panel you were talking about, where the government is going to look to the communities, how about you include some of the normal community members? So when decisions and discussions have been done, they are also present. And one last thing, I think our government have a spirit of benevolence when it comes to the foreigners. And what I mean by that, we as South Africans, black and white, Muslims, coloreds, you name it, have fought for freedom. But who is enjoying the freedom right now? Go in your townships, black townships, colored townships, most shops, townships or businesses, they are owned by foreigners. And to an extent, all ideas that has been laid down here by you, my lady, they are very good and they are nice, so to speak, but they don't speak to the general person on the floor. And I think you as the government need to come and do a survey. Go check what is really happening there, because we are crying and nobody's listening to us. It is really, to be honest with you, I'm not trying to be funny. It is not a nice place to stay in South Africa this time around. It is not a nice place, because we as South Africans feel you are a foreigner in your own country. I thank you.
Thank you very much. I will hand over to the department. If there are any further questions in the next round, we'll take them then.
Thank you. For the first question, micro is your very small self-help businesses. When you and we have moved away as a government, as a department. We don't always, there are certain limitations, but we want to work with the informal industry. We've got a specific unit in our department working with the informal sector, where we want to help you to grow so that at a point you become so profitable that you want to go to the next level where you can get better support so that you can become formalized. So we have a unit in the department specializing in helping and working with informal businesses. So we've recognized you because you don't understand how important your sector is to this department, to the government. I think there was research done, and the informal sector is actually supporting a lot of people because through self-help opportunities. And we want to encourage and we want to help that. So definitely, the informal sector is very important to our department, and we have a unit specialized and looking at informal businesses. We're coming up with programs and assistance and how we're going to help the informal sector. So definitely informal is very important to the department. In terms of the Ombud and accountability to the Minister and Parliament, the only reason why we've said there that the Ombud is accountable, because sometimes good intentions turns out to go against you. So you can't create an Ombud because the Ombud must be accountable, and the Ombud must be accountable. And why we say it must be accountable to the Minister and Parliament is so that it can't just report to the Minister, it must also report to Parliament. Parliament consists of representatives elected through the communities. So that is why we say the Ombud must report to the Minister as the Minister for the, but also to Parliament. So they must submit reports every year to Parliament, and that's going to Parliament, and that will then be openly available on the parliamentary website. But it's important that accountability is there, that the Ombud can't just do as it pleases. It needs to fulfill the mandate that has been given through the Act. That is why it's important. Then the criteria under asset value. The asset value is currently, when we, in terms of the current legislation, when we need to determine whether you're small, medium, or micro, we need to ask you, how many people do you employ? You only employ yourself. What is your turnover? How much money do you make? And then we have to say, what is the asset value? What is the value of your assets that you have in the business? Your counter and your fridge and your water. That information is not available. Nobody has that information, and we don't have the people to collect it. And what are we going to do with the information? We need to make that assessment, and that asset value. That is why we're doing away with the asset value, because we don't have that information. And this is why, as I indicated earlier, it's actually criminal to say asset value, but we don't have any evidence to support that. So that is the asset value that we're doing away. So we're only going to look at employment and what is your turnover. Asset value is out. We're not going to look at that anymore. Then the issue about tax money and townships. It's criminal. It needs to be stopped. And how do we stop that? And when I say it starts with ourselves, it starts with you and government. Yes, you have your local government has an obligation, and government do have an obligation to make sure that we live in safe places. And that is where South African Police Service is also coming in. But what we as communities must also do is, when there are these tax collectors staying amongst us, we must unveil them and make them known so that they can be dealt with, those tax collectors. We must also make sure that we put systems in place. And it happened. This is how it happened in the area where I stay, is people started to put up cameras, not just security cameras in your own property, but looking into the streets from our properties. And that is how we started to safeguard your communities in your areas. We have groups and we collect money and we decide where are we going to put up these cameras. But talk to your municipality, come up with a plan, I would say, to have this done. Our church, we go, and my husband and my neighbor, once a month we go, and Tswane gave up on us. They gave us no training in terms of how to fold bottles. So you get your chance one Saturday morning in a month. It's your turn, and you go and you fold the bottles, and we go for training to fold those bottles so that we do it properly. But you get to a point where you as a community member decide, I am not going to allow tax collectors, criminals to be part of my community. I am going to make them known. I am going to put in systems. I'm going to take responsibility. And this is why we need people like you. We need people like you to go out. We need those church people to go out and to say, but listen, as a church, how can we help? How can we organize? Our church is filling potholes as part of the problem that they're solving. A lot apart from all the other social work that they're doing. But we as a community, we fill our own potholes. Tswane is too slow. Tswane doesn't look after us, so we look after ourselves. We fall. But I understand that with us, most of us are probably working for salaries. Where in your area, you're probably micro enterprises. So I'm not comparing. I don't say it's the same, but we need to start somewhere. And maybe that is the way to start taking responsibility. There is no panel that's going to take decisions under Ombud. It is it's a legal person that's going to be appointed, and that legal person will take there's requirements that person have to comply with, but it's legal requirements that they have to, and it must have those legal qualifications, and that will take a decision. So no, we don't want debates about whether a person is guilty or not guilty. There's the law, and there's a response to the unlawfulness, and that is what those people are going to do, because it's going to be clear. If it was unfair business practice, it was an unfair business practice. This is the decision, and end of the story. We don't want debates. We want decisions, and we want movement. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This will be a final opportunity for any questions. Okay, I see the gentleman over there, the lady in pink, and then the lady with the stripes. And then there's another, yes. Okay, so if you'd like to proceed with your question.
My naam is Patrick Vrij. Ek is 'n gewone gemeenskapswerker van Stellenbosch. Wat ek wil eintlik geweet het is dat die groot sake companies stel mos nie belang aan die klein sake companies nie. So, maar wat ek nou uitgevind het is dat die munisipale tyd doen nou dieselfde met dit wat die groot companies doen. Hulle sit ook groot werke op vir groot companies. So hulle provide ook nie nou meer vir die klein companies nie. En die government trek hulle ver weg van die munisipaliteite af. Wat munisipaliteite doen nou absoluut net wat hulle wil. En hulle het nie tyd vir klein besighede nie. En dit is vir my 'n baie leerstellend. Wat kan gedoen word is dat die munisipaliteite moet die groot werke wat hulle het, moet hulle opbreek en in kleiner dele insit sodat die klein companies ook kan inpas in die werke. Maar wat hulle eintlik doen, hulle gooi groot werke uit want hulle weet hulle vriende het groot companies en hulle kry die groot werke en dan is daar niks vir ons op die grond nie. En dit is baie teleurstellend dat die government nie iets doen aan die munisipaliteite wat enige iets doen nie. Wat my ander concern is dat die community het niks te sê in die dinge wat die munisipale doen nie. As hulle wil groot businesses daar wil oprig en hulle kom vra nie vir die gemeente, hoe kan ons dit doen nie. Hulle doen dit net eenvoudig en ons het niks te sê daarin nie en dan kry ons nie eens 'n voordeel uit nie. So wat waar is deze 'n company of 'n klein company, maar jy kan nie jou jy kry nie werk vir jou business nie. En die ander ding is ons klein businesses kry nie die ondersteuning van die government nie op een rede. Meeste van ons goed word afgekeer by planne. Ons stel nie ons planne reg op nie, maar ons kry ook die opleiding, hoe moet ons planne opstel volgens ons business nie. En dit is vir my baie teleurstelling, want baie van ons klein businesses word weggewys by SIDA's om sulke goed, omdat die planne wat ons indien is nie kwalifiseer nie vir dit wat hulle vir ons wil help nie. En ons het geen opleiding daaroor nie. Niemand kom na die communities en sê, hoor jy, ons gee vandag of vir die 2 weke gee ons opleiding vir mense wat wil planne opstel vir hulle businesses. Daar kom nie sulke goed om by ons in die communities nie. So, hoe gaan ons communities weet wat om te doen? En die mense wat planne opstel vir die mense, vra vir ons klomp geld om net 'n plan op te stel. En ons het gratis daai geld nie. En die ander punt is die government gee jou 'n bedrag geld wat dan moet jy nog 'n bedragie terugbetaal. Maar die tyd wat hulle vir jou gee om die bedragie terug te betaal, is dan so min tyd. Hulle gee omtrent vir jou 'n 3 jaar of 'n 2 jaar. Maar wie sê jou business gaan binne hy 2 jaar of 3 jaar groei om vir hulle terug te betaal? En dit maak 'n concern op die businessman, op die klein businessman, want hy voel hy kan nie praktiseer om daai bedrag in te maak, want die tydperk wat vir hom gegee word is te min. En omdat die lewe draai so baie, want dan is daar stryk en dan is daar dit, dan is daar daai en dit affekteer op die klein business om daai bedrag in te maak vir betyds, en dan word daar groot teks en goed op hom gesit om net om hy geld terug te gee. En die ander ding is dat hulle vra vir die klein businessman, hy moet 'n garantie gee dat hy sal wel daai dinge aan. Nou moet hy gaan na companies toe wat nie belangstel nie. Kan die government nie homself garantie op die klein business, want hy stel dan die geld vry vir die klein business om 'n business te begin, maar hy soek iemand. Hy sê die klein businessman moet 'n garantie gaan kry vir hom, en watter company gaan sommer 'n garantie staan vir 'n klein businessman? Dis my vraag.
Thank you very much. Then the ladies in the row over there, each of you had a question, so we'll just move consecutively.
Goedemiddag. Ek is Maria King. Die eerste persoon wat vraag gevra het gepraat oor die belasting, né? Wat betaal word. Hy het gepraat van die dorp wat mooi lyk, die townships wat niks is nie. Volgens my betaal ek ook belasting. Hoekom moet ons plekke dan nie mooi lyk nie? En dan nog 'n ding, ek moet so by staan. Nog 'n ding is dit ons bly in townships. Ons bly in hokke. Hoekom moet ons mense in hokke bly? As ons opstaan soggens, dan word daar mense opgesit vir mense wat nie eens in Suid-Afrika bly nie. Kom van Amerika. Nou hoe gaan ons besighede kan doen as sulke goed in ons gemeenskappe gebeur? Ons mense het huise nodig, maar die huise gaan vir foreigners. Die persoon wat die kontrak kry is 'n Amerikaner. Wat gebeur in Suid-Afrika met die Suid-Afrikaners? Hulle kry nie, hulle is hier gebore, groot geword, hulle kry nie plekkie. Hulle moet in hokke bly. Hoe maak die kinders groot, 10 kinders, 8 kinders in 'n hok? Ons is moeg, mevrou. Ek is jammer, ons is moeg. Want ons kan nie so aangaan meer nie. In Stellenbosch is dit erger. Dit lyk dis 'n mafia wat net bou en aangaan. Ons kan nie so besig, hulle sal nie so ons sê, ons gaan 'n besigheid hier opsit nie. Ons gaan nou huise bou nie. As ons uitkyk, dan sien ons hier staan 'n mense op. Wie gaan aan bly? Chinese? Weet jy wat, Amelie? Maar nie ons mense nie. Dus die government moet sy oë oopmaak en kyk na sy mense. Ons betaal ook belasting. Net soos hy, ek is hier reis, laat ek gewoon mooi sê, net hy dorp en hy Witman, teks betaal ons ook teks. Hoekom kan ons strate nie skoon kom? Hoekom kan dan nie by ons kameras ingesit word, dat ons kan sien, wie is die mense wat moeilikheid maak en steel en roof in ons plekkie? Maar dit is net by sekere mense. Soos daai mannetjie bly in die boot, nee meneer. En in die boot is alles mooi, die strate word gevee. Gaan Provincial toe, gaan Idasvallei toe, gaan Kayamandi toe, dan gaan kykie hoe lyk dit. Kukuletu seker dieselfde, Khayelitsha seker dieselfde. Hoekom kan die government nie na sy mense kykie? Hy is ge-worry van foreigners. Die foreigners het winkels in al ons plekke. Hulle het winkels. Hulle het omtrent soos 20 winkels in Provincial. Hulle betaal vir een winkel belasting. Dit is wat die government doen. Vanuit hulle mos ingebring. So dit is die goed wat die government nou gaan. Ek is moeg van dit. Ek is moeg dat my kinders wat geteld is by my in 'n huis moet bly. Maar as jy vir 'n plek, maar daar's plek vir foreigners. So die government sal 'n plan moet maak om na sy mense te kyk. Asseblief.
Okay, thank you. Just a reminder, we're still on questions. Oral submissions we'll do shortly afterwards. So let's keep focused. What are the questions? And then we'll move on to the next round. If the two ladies left over can pose their questions.
Goeienaand, ek is Aselena, van is Dirk, ek is van Stellenbosch. So, kom as ek 15 jaar terug en toe, ek was lang in die catering besigheid gewees, Universiteit van Stellenbosch. En toe wil ons besigheid opmaak in Stellenbosch in die dorp. Toe was daar ook vir ons gevra of ons fondse het om die besigheid op te maak. Toe sê het maar ons het nie geld nie. En dat was net afgeskiet gewees. En dat was nie Jan Wanner nie. Dus die hele dorp vol Pakistans, Chinese, Somaliërs en al het allemaal besighede. Daar is nie een kleerling in Stellenbosch wat 'n besigheid het nie. Nie een nie. In 'n groot dorp. Ons kan nie Kloeters wil tel by ons nie, want Kloeters wil net so 'n klein winkelsentrum. En dit is maar net Spar of wie ever wat daar is. Daar is die besigheid. Maar ze pallet dat daar iets kom opzet, daar ze wel besigheid. Maar die mensen werken niet. Hulle, die tekstjes van Stellenbosch kan niet eens voorkomen nie, van hoekom die mensen werken niet. Stellenbosch is bezig om een spookdorp Kloeterswil te worden. Maar voor ons hier mooi kyk. Ander dag was die tekstjes chockemblok vol werk toe. Onze mensen. Vandaag is die tekstjes leeg. Vanaf 6 af, hoe die tekstjes jou wakker om mensen te zoeken om te gaan werken. So ek kan nie nog 'n besigheid opsit nie, want ek het nie die geld nie. Toe was dit nie by my moet uitbetaal vir 43 jaar, toe kry ek nog eens 500 000 rand nie. So hoe gaan ek nog 'n besigheid kan opsit? So ons het nie geld nie, ons kinders werk nie. Kinders werk in die straat, die staan 'n tiene van 3 jaar terug, vir nou nog strate. So die municipaliteit met government stel nie belang aan kleerlinge nie. Dit is my siek, dit is my kopseer. Ons was werkende mense. Vandag sit ek met 'n scrapyard wat 10 aan my huis is. Die rotte hardloop die strate vol. Ek het foto's op my phone. Die municipaliteit doen niks aan 'n scrapyard. Daai kind steel sy ma se nuwe potte in my pad. En dit is hy classic potte. Hy kap dit stuk en hy gaan giet om die dryf vir die scrapyard. Hy scrapyard vat dit. Ons het al 'n vergadering gehad, ons gaan praat met die municipaliteit. Hulle druk hulle ore toe vir ons. So ons het 'n groot probleem wat groter is as net besigheid. Ek kan nie groente verkoop by die parkie nie. Ek koop groente by die parkie kom law enforcement. As sê hy, mevrou, jy moet opbreek want jy het nie 'n permit nie. So hoe gaan ons eendag lewe? So daar gaan 'n dag kom, mevrou, wat ek wil sê. Want die skolies en die mense gaan opstaan en hulle gaan eis wat hulle gaan toekom. En dit gaan 'n gemors wees. En dit is nie meer fair nie, want ons kinders ly nou honger. Dis al wat ek wil sê. Ons kinders ly honger. Of wat onder die agensies en of wat onder die DA-raad is, maar ons kinders ly honger. Hierdie vrou maak kos vir die welsyn. As meer as oor die 100 mense wat in hy lyn staan, dan kry die laaste 20 mense nie kos nie, want die kos is op. Want ons mense staan nou in lyne. Skoolkinders, hy moet eers die kinders kos gee. Hy kindertjies is klaar maklik klaar die 40 vol. Dan staan nog ek lang. Ek help skep vir. Dan staan die lyn nog om die draai. Nou kom my laaste 20 of 13 mense, daar is nie meer kos nie, die kos is op. Dit is hoe ons in Stellenbosch nou gaan. Praat jy met die raadslede of hulle trek hulle skouers op. Jy weet nie meer wie om te stem as dit nou stemtyd kom nie. Van al wat ek vir mense nou kan sê, sorry nou my ouensie, sorry nou my DA, van ons ly nou honger. Daar is nie werk nie. Maar as jy sien, die foreigners is besig om te werk, hulle is besig om te grawe, daar is nie werk vir ons mense nie. Ek kan sê daar gaan bekry met mense om te sê hoekom se lê julle wifi is hierso en hier is die mense wat ons mense werk hier nie. Ons het daai man gedwing om teen 10 van ons mense te vat. Toe hulle in die ander kant se straat kom te sê hy gangsters weer, die gangsters kom hier werk want hier skiet ons mekaar dood vandag. Want ons wil ook werk. So ons het met ons helse probleme vrou in Stellenbosch. Daai sanitine, hulle is omtrent 200 wat nou strate skoonmaak en die parke skoonmaak. Na die verkiesing as hulle net weer 5 wat daar werk. As die ander celebrity, hy sal leen kry kinders. Ons kinders kry kindertjies op kindertjies wanneer hulle wat soekie sassa geld. Dit is ons groot probleem in hierdie Stellenbosch en in die Suid-Afrika.
Thank you, ma'am. Just a reminder, oral submissions, we'll take them after the questions. We just want to get through the questions. So we'll take the final question now, ma'am.
Goeienaand, Madam Speaker. Ek is Jolanda van Neel, Jomna. Ek is 'n community warrior in Stellenbosch. Ek bedryf 'n klein takeaway van die huis af. En dan het ek 'n non-profit feeding scheme waar plus minus 200 mense elke donderdag kom kos hou. Ek wil net weet wat staan my te doen. Ek het al aangeklop vir fondse en niemand is daar om van my te help en elke week kom die mense net meer en meer vir kos en dit raak erg en ek wil net weet hoe kan ek help kry. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll hand over to the department to answer the questions, and then from there we'll move on to oral submissions. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. It's difficult to have solutions for your problems because there's not problems that we can solve through the Small Business Act. Your problems is social related, but there are some. When you talk about large businesses, jy het gepraat van groot besighede wat nie belangstel in klein besighede nie. Ek dink jy maak 'n fout. Groot besighede stel baie belang in klein besighede. Veral jou blanke groot besighede, want daar is die BEE codes is baie belangrik vir hulle en hulle moet voldoen aan daai BEE codes en dis hoekom 'n belangrike manier vir hulle om te voldoen aan daai BEE codes is om saam met klein besighede te werk. En dit is hoekom ons Enterprise Supplier Development programme so suksesvol is, want dit is juis hulle soek na klein non-white owned they're looking for small black owned businesses to work with. So definitely the large businesses, in terms of the legislation, we're forcing them to work with small businesses. On issues of municipality not doing their work, I don't stay in your community, I don't vote there. My advice to you is make sure that when you go to the voting station and don't stay at home that day, do go and do vote and do vote for somebody that will make a difference. That is important. So you need to take responsibility for julle moet verantwoordelikheid neem vir julle omgewings en dit is die enigste manier is jou stem tel. Jy mag dalk nie geld hê nie, maar jy het 'n stem. Dus maak nie saak jy het net soveel stemme soos wat 'n baie ryk persoon het. 'n Ryk persoon het ook net een stem. Jy het ook net een stem. So stem en maak seker dat die communities werk. Die klein besighede wet kan baie vir julle doen, maar hy kan net soveel vir julle doen. Hy kan nie daai social probleme vir julle hanteer nie. Dame, in terme van as you applied for support, I'm not sure, have you applied for our township TREP program? Have you applied through CEDA for our assistance programs? The Small Enterprise Development Agency, I think it's important that you get to your nearest CEDA office and see, because one of the programs that we have is a township rural enterprise program that is specifically focused in providing financial support for businesses in townships, and fast food outlets qualify for that support. So definitely, and we've upscaled it. It came through when COVID was in place. And we've upscaled it, and we, as I indicated earlier, we're working on a township policy because we've realized how important that intervention was and it still is. We've upscaled it. We're improving that program. It's very effective program, and we're having very good feedback on the township. So it's a township. It's a TREP. We call it TREP, Township Rural Enterprise Program.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll now move on to oral submissions. If I can please see a raise of hands of anyone who would like to make an oral submission. I see 1, 2. Okay, in that order.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the representative of small businesses and enterprise from the government. Surely hope is not lost. Thank you for this public setting today, where you showed us how we can get access to our government as people who are giving out services and selling products within communities. It is something that's so necessary and something that is not really touched upon, that I believe that everybody should be having their ears attentive to. Transformation is not only just transformation, it requires action. They say transformation is action within, but it requires action without. Pastors can only do a limited amount of work, but we also as a community need to take part in that greater change. The businesses structure within townships and many rural areas or places that are classified as townships are actually, I would put it in this manner. They're actually, I would say, even non-existent, because not that they're not formalized, but they have no direction. And even if you can have the most brilliant of ideas, with no direction, you're going nowhere. And that's one thing that we need. We need leadership. We need good and concise leadership that understands us and that can work with us and show us that, and I see where you're headed, but this is the path to walk. And the office of the ombudsman is one office that I believe that will bring that into practice and into reality. And we thank you for that. Our submission from me, Kennedy Rudzan Ramatse, as a representative of, I believe, the people of South Africa, if they will have me, of course, and we Earth, is that we are here to offer our own services. There's a new generation of young people that says, do not pay us with money. We want to rebuild our country. We want to make South Africa great again. There has been a vision about South Africa, once called a rainbow nation, and I believe that name still persists. And we are saying as young people, we want to play a part. Do not pay us with money. Involve us where you are taking decisions. Let us have a say. Let us not even just have a say. Let us work with you. Let us fill up the potholes with you, because we require action, and not just action from above. We require action from all citizens of South Africa to build the South Africa that we have long heard about and that we feel that is so distant from our heart, but we can yet touch it. Our submission is that there should be an ESG monitoring of big businesses. Yes, I love the point that you stressed on how you are forcing big businesses to do businesses with small businesses. But as I said, what we need is more leadership. We have big co-ops in South Africa. I'm not sure if anybody knows Remgro. It has something called Distel that it's sold to Heineken. I recently came to know that it was a co-op. And cooperatives, why is it a co-op? Is because many brands can come together and say, let us sell our products as a unit. And that is something that has strength. That is what we called amandla. Now, with that, I would suggest also as a submission that there should be an ESG monitoring to how businesses can offset their carbon emissions and many other kind of water usage, many other kind of pollutants or whatever they have to offset by them mentoring small businesses in their faculty, especially from townships and other areas classified as villages. With that direct mandate, I believe that businesses in those areas can have that possibility to grow and even outgrow the township itself. Because what we need is not more imports, it's more exports that we're looking for. So ESG monitoring in the terms of mentoring, also offering that offers mentoring from big businesses to small businesses. I believe that this will also reduce the cost that you have, because it doesn't matter if you give us 50,000, 100,000 rand with us having no direction. What we need is real direction, and that can be gotten from people who have walked the path, who you can mandate to say mentor 50 small businesses in this area. You are in this area, mentor 100 businesses or so. That is one thing. And you spoke about war rooms, and we believe that at We Earth, there's a platform called We Earth, weearth.co.za. When you go there, there's something called Give Back. What we have done, we are looking at small businesses within townships anywhere across the country. And what we are saying is that teach a trade to young people in your community, and we will give you something back. When you teach your trade to young people in your community, you do not just give them something, you're giving them a trade, you're giving them a future. They get to understand and know themselves through the skills. We have to work hand in hand with our department, and this is one thing that we believe that we are there to enhance what is already there. We need all small businesses to come in and say we are willing to teach our trade to people in our communities, because we cannot expect the government to do everything for us, but we would like to work together with the government to see how we can mandate more and more businesses to teach their trade to young people within South Africa, because we believe that the more young people are advanced and the more young people can know, the better decision makers we can have. I'd also like to come to another submission of where we can localize authorities electronically. Let me just say authoritative measures electronically. I mentioned before that for us as We Earth, what we have developed is a advocacy platform that allows each and every single community to say, this is what we are looking for. This is what we do not have. We do not have a clinic. We do not have an ECD center. We do not have this and this. And what our mandate, we are mandated to go and speak to companies and try to help them offset their ESGs. So by them doing what you need in your community. But without the need, there is very little that we can do. As for me, I would also look into this ESG thing, because the ESG thing is something that is revolutionizing things in the world and is taking over by a storm. But if our government does not use it to mandate companies to solve community issues that are given by the communities, we cannot have any progress. So our submission is that you look into ESG offsetting so that you can mandate companies to really go into communities and say, what is your need? Not for them to come and build us a youth center that they spoke to nobody about. I'll go to another submission. Another submission is that we have a certain case here in South Africa of what I would call rough sleepers. Rough sleepers is a term that was termed in the UK for people who are living on the streets. Those people, if I can tell you, I've seen them protect businesses. I've seen them clean up our cities. I've seen them protect women who were almost assaulted. I've seen them do a great deal. And I believe that we have a mandate as the public of South Africa and as the business, as the government, I would say also, to say what businesses can we lobby around those kind of people? Are they into recycling? Let us have a program to make sure that we can get those people and try to teach them more about recycling and empower them. Because one other thing, giving them what you call tickets to the shelter, it does help for the night, but we have to give them something sustainable. I believe the government should look into working with communities and shelters, of course, because they have the registrars for all these people, to say what kind of businesses can we have a conversation with them, sit down with them and say what businesses can we do with you. And my final submission is, yes, my final submission is on technology adoption. Our parents here, I really, if I'm permitted to say, I thank God for such an opportunity, because we have a host of elders, a host of many trees in this place that have cast a shadow over us young people. And that means a lot to me as an African. What it means that I have a lot of leaves that I have to look at and see, because each leaf has a story to tell. You have a story to tell. But another thing is that there is this new wave of technology that is eluding you, that is going further and further away from you. And we believe that if there's for you to be also relevant in the business case, especially when you're past 50, past 65, you should be relevant. But for you to be relevant, you should be taught again what technology is. The government of Singapore has actually done something. It has said that for people over the age of 40, we are saying that we are providing funds so that you can go back to school, so that you can keep up with this new technology and know how to use it for your own case. We are asking, what is the department prepared to do to make sure that our parents, our elders, the trees that we have in the house can also have this access and say that we are relevant? What is the department doing in terms of technology adoption that will say that we are mandated to go into villages, into many other areas, and teach our senior citizens about this technology so that they can take part in the trade? My final submission, as I say, is that I believe there should be a drive for cooperatives in the country. Cooperatives, because we have to export. I'm sorry to say, I have a different view about who we might call foreigners in our country. I do not call them foreigners. I call them walking banks. Because each and every single person that is coming into South Africa, no matter how bad they are, I believe that we can gain a South African economic value from them. I asked the House today that let us get a new set of eyes. Let us see them as opportunities and not as competitors, because this is our land, our forefathers' land, and nobody knows the land better than us. Therefore, let us gain a new sight, a new way of thinking, a new way of looking into things. How do we make money from what has been from our brothers and sisters that are from other countries? Because other things are happening in real estate. The land that is there also, how do we develop it so that more and more investors can come in? Because that's what they are. They're investors. They might not be investing in the right.
If I could ask you to wrap up, transport is arriving for many at 7.
Oh, sorry, apologies. So that is another mandate that I would say, the drive for cooperatives in certain sectors, especially for young people. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a second submission. Okay, no further submissions. All right. I understand that transport is arriving for quite a few individuals now at 7 p.m. So with that and no further submissions, it is noted we've received a written submission from the Western Cape Government as well as the City of Cape Town. I would like to adjourn today's meeting. Thank you all very much for joining us this evening on this Friday. We know, of course, there are other things that you could be doing, but we appreciate each and every single one of you coming through, learning about the bill, asking the tough questions, and also giving your inputs. It's invaluable. Have a wonderful rest of the day and a wonderful weekend. Thank you.
Thank you.